Money discipline, how the wealthy control spending and build power. A long-form psychological exploration of money, discipline, identity, and self-command. Written, narrated, and produced by Audiobook Mantra. All rights reserved. This is not about saving money. This is about mastering yourself. Introduction. Why money discipline is real power. Most people believe wealth is built by earning more. But earning more without discipline only amplifies chaos. Money does not expose intelligence. Money exposes identity. Give money to someone without discipline, and it disappears. Give money to someone with discipline, and it multiplies. This is why so many people remain broke, even as their income rises, and why some people grow wealth slowly, quietly, and permanently, even on modest earnings. The difference is not opportunity. It is not luck. It is not education. It is money discipline. The wealthy do not control money because they are rich. They are rich because they learned to control money when it mattered most, before abundance arrived. Discipline is not restriction. It is direction. The undisciplined spend emotionally. The disciplined allocate strategically. The undisciplined chase relief. The disciplined build power. The undisciplined react to money. The disciplined command it. This audiobook is not about frugality. It is not about budgets. It is not about cutting coffee or obsessing over small expenses. It is about psychological authority, the internal self-command that allows a person to decide where their money goes, instead of wondering where it went. Money discipline is not a habit. It is an identity. The wealthy do not ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Does this align with the person I am becoming?" They understand something most people never learn. Every purchase is a vote. Every expense reinforces an identity. Every financial decision trains the mind, either toward power or toward weakness. This is why spending reveals more about a person than earning ever could. In this audiobook, you will learn how the wealthy think about spending, control, delay, restraint, allocation, and self-command. You will learn why most people lose money even when they earn more. You will learn how discipline becomes automatic when identity is aligned. You will learn why the ability to say no is more valuable than the ability to earn more. You will learn how self-control compounds into freedom. This is not about deprivation. It is about dominance over impulse, emotion, distraction, and short-term gratification. Money discipline is the quiet force behind every fortune. It is invisible. It is uncelebrated. It is misunderstood. But it is absolute power. If you master discipline, money becomes obedient. If you do not, money becomes a weapon used against you. This audiobook will not motivate you. It will rewire you. Welcome to Money Discipline, where control becomes clarity and clarity becomes power. Chapter 1. The Spending Identity. Why most people lose control before money even arrives. Long before money ever touches your hands, it has already been decided what will happen to it. Not by income, not by intelligence, not by opportunity, but by identity. Every person carries a spending identity, a silent internal pattern that governs how money is treated, respected, feared, chased, wasted, protected, or weaponized. This identity forms quietly, early, and deeply. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself only through behavior. Most people believe spending is a rational act. It is not. Spending is emotional expression disguised as logic. You do not spend based on what you need. You spend based on who you believe you are. This is why two people earning the same amount of money live completely different financial lives. One grows steadily, quietly, invisibly. The other feels constant pressure, stress, and confusion, no matter how much they earn. The difference is not income, it is identity. The undisciplined spender does not lack knowledge. They lack self-command. They do not lose money because they are careless. They lose money because their spending is controlled by emotion, not intention. For most people, money becomes a way to regulate feelings. Stress turns into spending. Boredom turns into spending. Insecurity turns into spending. Comparison turns into spending. Fatigue turns into spending. Reward turns into spending. Money becomes therapy, and therapy is expensive when it is unconscious. This is the first truth the wealthy understand, and most people never confront. If money is allowed to soothe emotion, it will never build power. The wealthy do not use money to feel better in the moment. They use money to make their future stronger. That single distinction separates control from chaos. Spending identity is built when you are young. You learn it by watching how adults around you treated money. You absorb the tone, the tension, the fear, the urgency, the impulsiveness, the silence. You internalize patterns long before you ever understand currency. If money was scarce, spending became emotional. If money was unstable, spending became impulsive. If money was stressful, spending became avoidant. If money was used to compensate for pain, spending became habitual. Over time, these patterns harden into identity. By adulthood, most people do not decide how they spend. They react. They open an app, swipe a card, click a button, justify afterward. They feel relief, then guilt, relief, then anxiety, relief, then pressure. This cycle trains the mind to associate spending with emotional relief. And once that association is formed, discipline collapses. The wealthy break this cycle early. They recognize that money must never become an emotional regulator. The moment money is tied to mood, it loses its authority. Discipline begins when emotion is removed from spending decisions. This does not mean the wealthy are cold or joyless. It means they are intentional. They do not ask, "Do I want this?" They ask, "Does this serve the identity I am building?" That question changes everything, because once spending becomes identity-based, not emotion-based, control emerges naturally. The wealthy understand that every purchase trains the mind. Every transaction reinforces a version of the self. Every expense is a signal, not to the world, but to the subconscious. You are always teaching yourself who you are. When you spend impulsively, you teach yourself that impulse is in charge. When you spend emotionally, you teach yourself that emotion has authority. When you spend without clarity, you teach yourself that money controls you. But when you delay, evaluate, and allocate intentionally, you teach yourself something far more powerful. I am in command. This command is the foundation of money discipline. The disciplined spender does not feel deprived. They feel grounded. They do not feel restricted. They feel directed. They are not fighting desire. They are aligned with purpose. This is why discipline feels painful to some and effortless to others. Pain appears when identity and behavior are in conflict. Ease appears when they are aligned. Most people try to control spending through force, budgets, rules, restrictions, guilt. This never lasts. Force collapses under emotion. The wealthy control spending through identity congruence. They simply do not identify as someone who leaks money through impulse. They do not see themselves as someone who trades long-term power for short-term comfort. They do not associate self-worth with consumption. They do not soothe insecurity with purchases. This is not because they are superior. It is because they trained their identity deliberately, and identity always wins. When your identity is weak, money overpowers you. When your identity is strong, money obeys you. This is the real hierarchy. Identity, behavior, then outcome. Most people try to fix outcome. The wealthy fix identity. Money discipline is not about saying no to things. It is about saying yes to the future version of yourself, consistently, quietly, relentlessly. The spending identity you hold today will determine whether money becomes a tool or a trap in your life. Before wealth can be built, control must exist. Before control can exist, identity must shift. Before identity can shift, awareness must begin. This chapter marks that beginning, because once you see that spending is not a financial issue, but an identity issue, the entire game changes. And from here forward, discipline is no longer something you force. It becomes something you embody. Chapter 2. Delay as power. How the wealthy use restraint to dominate their financial future. The moment you learn to delay yourself, you gain power over your future. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths in wealth building because it demands something most people have never trained: restraint, not the forced kind, not the guilt-driven kind, but the calm, deliberate, almost silent restraint of someone who understands the long game. The wealthy are not immune to desire. They are not less tempted. They are not naturally disciplined. They are simply trained. They understand that immediacy is the enemy of power. Most people live in immediate time. They feel, they react, they spend. Emotion appears, Action follows. There is no space between impulse and behavior, no pause, no command, just movement. The wealthy insert space. That space, the pause between impulse and action, is where control lives. Delay is not hesitation. Delay is not fear. Delay is not indecision. Delay is authority. When you delay a purchase, you are not denying yourself pleasure. You are testing the impulse. You are asking whether the desire is real or emotional, whether it will still exist when the emotion fades, whether it aligns with who you are becoming, or only with how you feel in the moment. Most desires disappear when forced to wait. Only aligned desires survive delay. This is why the wealthy delay by default. They do not rush into spending. They do not rush into upgrades. They do not rush into lifestyle inflation. They do not rush into rewards. They let time filter impulse. Time is the greatest detector of truth. When you wait, emotion decays. When emotion decays, clarity emerges. When clarity emerges, discipline becomes effortless. The undisciplined feel deprived when they delay. The disciplined feel empowered. This difference is identity. To someone whose identity is tied to consumption, delay feels like loss. To someone whose identity is tied to power, delay feels like control. The wealthy do not ask themselves, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "What does this cost my future?" Every purchase has two prices: the price you pay now and the power you give up later. Most people see only the first price. The wealthy see both. They understand that money is stored energy, energy that can be converted into options, leverage, security, flexibility, freedom. Spending releases that energy. Allocation redirects it. Investment multiplies it. The disciplined delay not because they fear spending, but because they respect energy. There is a psychological shift that happens when someone learns to delay consistently. The mind stops panicking. The nervous system calms. The craving weakens. The internal chaos settles. Delay trains emotional maturity. It teaches you that discomfort does not require action. It teaches you that desire does not require obedience. It teaches you that feelings are temporary, but consequences are permanent. Most people never learn this lesson. They believe feelings are instructions. They treat impulse as authority. They surrender control to emotion. The wealthy do the opposite. They treat emotion as information, not command. They observe desire without acting on it. They sit with discomfort without numbing it. They allow craving to exist without feeding it. This is why they can build wealth even on modest income, because their money is not leaking through emotional exits. Delay also creates a secondary effect: self-trust. Every time you delay successfully, you reinforce a powerful internal message: I am in control. This message compounds. You stop doubting your ability to manage money. You stop fearing temptation. You stop feeling fragile around desire. You stop negotiating with impulse. You become solid. Solid people do not leak money. They allocate it. There is a reason why the wealthy appear calm around money. It is not because they have more of it. It is because they are not controlled by it. They do not chase pleasure. They choose power. They understand that the ability to say, "Not yet," is infinitely more valuable than the ability to say, "Yes." Delay is not denial. Delay is strategy. It is the quiet discipline of someone who knows that the future belongs to those who can wait. This is why children are tested with delay. This is why leaders are measured by patience. This is why empires are built slowly. Delay trains the nervous system to tolerate growth. Growth always requires discomfort. If you cannot tolerate waiting, you cannot tolerate wealth. This chapter is not about cutting spending. It is about reclaiming command. The wealthy do not eliminate desire, they master it. And mastery begins with one simple practice: the refusal to act immediately. This is the first true financial weapon: not earning more, not saving more, but delaying more intelligently, because the person who controls their impulses controls their future. Chapter 3. The illusion of freedom. Why spending feels empowering but quietly enslaves most people. Spending feels like freedom. That feeling is not accidental. It is engineered. Every swipe, every tap, every purchase delivers a momentary sense of control. You choose, you act, you receive. In that instant, you feel autonomous, powerful, rewarded. For a brief moment, the world bends to your desire. This is why spending is seductive. It mimics freedom. But what feels like freedom is often the opposite. True freedom increases future options. False freedom sacrifices them. Most people confuse the two. The modern world has trained the mind to equate choice with power. If you can buy something, you must be free. If you can afford it, you must be winning. If you can indulge, you must be successful. This belief is dangerous, because spending without discipline creates the illusion of power while quietly transferring it away from you. Each impulsive purchase does not just cost money. It costs flexibility. It costs optionality. It costs leverage. It costs time. It costs peace. It costs future freedom. But because these costs are delayed and invisible, the mind ignores them. The brain prioritizes immediate sensation over long-term consequence. This is not a flaw. It is a survival mechanism. But survival mechanisms are poorly suited for wealth creation. The wealthy understand this mismatch. They know that the brain evolved for scarcity, not abundance. It seeks comfort. It seeks relief. It seeks reward. It seeks certainty. Spending satisfies all four instantly. That is why spending feels good, even when it is destructive. When you spend impulsively, your nervous system relaxes, tension releases, anxiety fades, discomfort numbs. For a moment you feel in control, then the bill arrives, or the account balance drops, or the credit card statement appears, and control disappears. This cycle trains the mind to associate spending with relief and consequence with avoidance. Over time, a pattern forms: feel, spend, relief, guilt, avoidance, and repeat. This is not freedom. It is conditioning. The wealthy break this conditioning by redefining freedom itself. To them, freedom is not the ability to buy something. Freedom is the ability to not buy it and feel nothing. That emotional neutrality is power. When a wealthy person walks away from a purchase, they do not feel deprived. They feel grounded, because their sense of self is not tied to consumption. Their identity is not purchased. Their status is not rented. Their worth is not validated by ownership. Most people do the opposite. They use spending to signal identity to themselves and others. They buy to feel competent. They buy to feel included. They buy to feel successful. They buy to feel secure. They buy to feel worthy. The tragedy is that this never works long term. Because identity cannot be purchased, it must be built. Spending becomes dangerous when it is used to compensate for something missing internally. When confidence is low, spending increases. When status feels threatened, spending escalates. When control feels absent, spending fills the gap. This is why financial advice that focuses only on numbers fails. The problem is not arithmetic. It is psychology. The wealthy understand that money must never be used to regulate emotion or identity. The moment it is, control is lost. They also understand something deeper. Spending trains obedience. Every time you obey impulse, you reinforce the belief that desire is in charge. Every time you indulge immediately, you weaken your capacity to delay. Every time you spend to feel better, you teach your nervous system that money is a drug, and drugs create dependency. The illusion of freedom is strongest when discipline is weakest. This is why people with rising incomes often feel more trapped, not less. Their lifestyle expands, their obligations increase, their flexibility shrinks. They look free, but they are anchored to payments, anchored to maintenance, anchored to expectation, anchored to image, anchored to income they must keep earning just to stand still. The wealthy avoid this trap by living below their emotional maximum, not just their financial one. They do not allow lifestyle to inflate faster than identity. They do not allow image to outrun substance. They do not allow comfort to outrun control. They understand that the true cost of spending is not the price tag. It is the future you trade away. This is why restraint feels powerful once identity shifts. You no longer feel like you are missing out. You feel like you are protecting something valuable. That something is your future. The illusion of freedom collapses the moment you realize that the most powerful people in the world are not those who can buy anything, but those who need very little. Needlessness is power. When you do not need to spend, money accumulates quietly. When you do not need validation, choices become clear. When you do not need relief, discipline becomes natural. The wealthy are not ascetic. They enjoy comfort. They enjoy quality. They enjoy experiences. But they enjoy them from a position of command, not craving. They choose, not react. This is the difference between freedom and illusion. Freedom is the ability to walk away without friction. Freedom is the ability to say no without discomfort. Freedom is the ability to delay without anxiety. Freedom is the ability to live below impulse. Most people never experience this freedom because they mistake spending for power. The wealthy know better. They understand that the most dangerous purchases are not the expensive ones. They are the unconscious ones, because unconscious spending is surrender, and surrender is the opposite of discipline. This chapter exists to break the illusion, to expose the quiet truth. Every time you resist the urge to spend, you are not losing something. You are reclaiming power. And power, once reclaimed, compounds. Chapter 4. Money as Command. Why the wealthy use finances to direct life, not reward emotion. The wealthy do not treat money as a reward. They treat it as a command system. This distinction is subtle, but it separates those who build power from those who leak it. Most people use money to feel something. They reward themselves for stress. They compensate themselves for pain. They soothe themselves for effort. They distract themselves from discomfort. Money becomes emotional currency. But the wealthy use money to direct something. They use it to shape behavior. They use it to enforce discipline. They use it to reinforce identity. They use it to steer their future. Money becomes a command. This difference rewires everything. When money is used as reward, behavior becomes reactive. When money is used as command, behavior becomes intentional. The undisciplined say, "I worked hard, I deserve this." The disciplined ask, "What does this decision build?" Reward-based spending trains dependency. Command-based allocation trains power. The wealthy understand that if money is allowed to reward emotion, emotion will hijack discipline. So they reverse the relationship. They do not spend because they feel good or bad. They spend because the allocation aligns with direction. This creates a powerful psychological loop. Money stops being something you react to. It becomes something you deploy. Deployment implies authority. The wealthy think like strategists, not consumers. They do not ask what will feel good now. They ask what will strengthen position. This is why their spending often looks boring from the outside. They do not chase novelty. They do not escalate lifestyle impulsively. They do not inflate identity through purchases. They invest in stability, leverage, skill, time, and optionality. They understand that money, when used correctly, can shape habits. When they allocate toward learning, skill improves. When they allocate toward health, energy increases. When they allocate toward systems, efficiency grows. When they allocate toward assets, leverage compounds. Money becomes behavioral architecture. This is something most people never grasp. They see money as outcome, not input. But money is a shaping force. Spend it on comfort, and comfort becomes identity. Spend it on growth, and growth becomes identity. The wealthy are ruthless about this, not emotionally. Strategically, they do not ask if something is pleasurable. They ask if it reinforces the person they are becoming. This is why they often delay rewards until after alignment is secured. They do not celebrate effort, they celebrate execution. Effort without outcome trains entitlement. Execution trains responsibility. This is a hard truth, but a necessary one. Many people sabotage themselves by rewarding effort rather than results. They spend because they tried. They indulge because they struggled. They justify because they are tired. The wealthy do not confuse effort with progress. They know that rewarding effort without outcome trains complacency. They know that indulgence without alignment weakens discipline. They know that comfort too early kills momentum. So they delay rewards, not forever, but strategically. They allow money to reinforce success, not soothe struggle. This builds a powerful internal narrative. I am someone who finishes. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who earns rewards through alignment. That narrative compounds. Over time, discipline becomes self-sustaining. Spending becomes purposeful. Money becomes calm. The wealthy also understand that command requires hierarchy. Money must not sit at the top of the hierarchy. Identity must. When money is above identity, spending becomes emotional. When identity is above money, spending becomes intentional. This is the correct order. Identity commands money. Money commands behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Most people invert this hierarchy. Money commands emotion. Emotion commands behavior. Behavior destroys outcomes. The wealthy fix the order. They build identity first. They use money to enforce it. This is why they can walk away from temptation without tension. This is why they can delay upgrades without feeling small. This is why they can say no without resentment. They are not denying themselves. They are obeying themselves. This is what real discipline feels like. Not tight, not restrictive, not punishing, calm, clear, directed. Money becomes a silent instructor, not a loud reward. The disciplined feel no need to prove success through consumption. Their power is internal. Their certainty is quiet. Their status is self-defined. They do not need to spend to feel accomplished. They spend because the spending itself is part of the plan. And because of this, their wealth grows slowly, invisibly, inevitably. The world never sees the discipline. It only sees the result. But behind every stable fortune is a person who learned to use money not as pleasure, but as command. This chapter marks a turning point. From here forward, money is no longer something that happens to you. It becomes something you instruct, and instruction is power. Chapter 5. The end of guilt. Why the wealthy say no without apology, and the undisciplined pay for it. Guilt is one of the most expensive emotions a person can carry, not because it feels heavy, but because it quietly dictates behavior. It whispers obligations that do not serve you. It pressures you into decisions that weaken your future. It disguises emotional manipulation as morality. And when guilt is attached to money, discipline collapses. The wealthy understand this early. They do not allow guilt to participate in financial decisions. Most people do. They spend out of guilt. They lend out of guilt. They give out of guilt. They upgrade out of guilt. They overextend out of guilt. They feel bad for having more. They feel bad for saying no. They feel bad for protecting themselves. They feel bad for choosing the future over the present. And guilt drains them. Guilt is not generosity. Guilt is not kindness. Guilt is not morality. Guilt is fear wearing a mask. Fear of judgment. Fear of rejection. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of being misunderstood. When guilt enters spending, money stops being strategic and starts being emotional. The wealthy cut this off completely, not because they are cold, but because they understand something essential. Money discipline cannot coexist with emotional coercion. The moment guilt influences a financial decision, authority is lost. Most people say yes when they mean no. They give when they cannot afford to. They spend to maintain peace. They upgrade to avoid judgment. They participate to avoid exclusion. And they call this generosity. But generosity that weakens the giver is not generosity. It is self-betrayal. The wealthy are generous, but only from strength, only from surplus, only from clarity. They never give from pressure. They never spend from obligation. They never allocate from emotion. They understand that guilt-based spending creates resentment, instability, and collapse. So they train a powerful internal boundary: no guilt in financial decisions. This boundary is not selfishness. It is sovereignty. Sovereignty means you are not governed by other people's expectations. It means you do not outsource your future to emotional approval. It means you do not negotiate with discomfort at the expense of discipline. The wealthy say no without apology because their identity is not tied to pleasing others. They do not need validation. They do not need approval. They do not need permission. Their worth is internal. This is why guilt has no leverage over them. They understand that guilt is often inherited, learned in childhood, reinforced in environments where saying no was punished, where boundaries were labeled selfish, where sacrifice was confused with virtue. These lessons run deep. Many people were trained to believe that protecting themselves is immoral, that saying no is unkind, that prioritizing the future is greedy, that discipline is cold. The wealthy unlearn this. They replace guilt with responsibility, responsibility to the future self, responsibility to stability, responsibility to sustainability, responsibility to long-term vision. They understand that every yes costs something, and most people never calculate the cost. A yes to unnecessary spending is a no to flexibility. A yes to emotional lending is a no to security. A yes to social pressure is a no to power. A yes to guilt is a no to discipline. The wealthy count these costs. They understand that discipline requires emotional independence. You cannot build power while emotionally dependent on how others feel about your decisions. This is why guilt destroys money discipline faster than impulse ever could. Impulse is obvious. Guilt is invisible. Impulse feels reckless. Guilt feels moral, and that makes guilt far more dangerous. The wealthy learn to tolerate discomfort, not financial discomfort, but emotional discomfort. The discomfort of disappointing others, the discomfort of being misunderstood, the discomfort of being judged, the discomfort of being different. They accept these costs willingly, because they know the alternative is far more expensive, a life of instability, stress, and quiet regret. This does not mean the wealthy are ruthless. It means they are deliberate. They give when it aligns. They help when it is sustainable. They support when it does not compromise direction. And when they say no, they do not explain, they do not justify, they do not apologize. They understand that explanations invite negotiation. Negotiation invites erosion. Erosion destroys discipline. No is a complete sentence when identity is secure. This is why guilt disappears as identity strengthens. When you trust yourself, you do not need emotional permission. When you respect your future, you do not fear present discomfort. When you command your identity, guilt loses its power. Money discipline reaches maturity at this stage, not when you learn to budget, not when you learn to save, but when you learn to protect your future without emotional collapse. The wealthy do not feel guilty for saying no because they understand what most people never calculate. Every disciplined no is a quiet yes to a stronger future. And once you feel that truth deeply, guilt dissolves. Chapter 6. Discipline before income. Why money without control always collapses. Most people believe discipline becomes easier after money arrives. The wealthy know the opposite is true. Discipline must exist before income increases, or income becomes dangerous. Money does not create stability. Money amplifies what already exists. If chaos lives in your habits, money multiplies chaos. If impulse governs your decisions, money accelerates impulse. If emotion controls your spending, money intensifies emotional damage. If identity is weak, money exposes it brutally. This is why so many people who earn more still feel broke. Why promotions bring stress instead of relief. Why windfalls disappear. Why businesses collapse after early success. Why athletes go bankrupt. Why lottery winners spiral. Income rose. Discipline did not. The wealthy understand that money is pressure. It magnifies responsibility. It increases decision frequency. It expands consequence. It accelerates exposure. Without discipline, this pressure crushes. Discipline is not a response to wealth. It is the prerequisite for surviving it. This is why the wealthy train discipline while resources are limited. They use scarcity as a gym, a controlled environment to build restraint, delay, structure, and command. When income is small, mistakes are survivable. When income is large, mistakes are catastrophic. The disciplined use early stages to build internal systems. They decide how money will be treated long before there is much of it. They establish rules, hierarchies, and boundaries while stakes are low. This is identity engineering. They do not wait to feel rich to act disciplined. They act disciplined to become capable of being rich. Most people reverse this order. They tell themselves discipline will come later, after the raise, after the business succeeds, after life stabilizes, after stress reduces. That moment never arrives, because discipline does not emerge from comfort. It emerges from command. The wealthy learn to command themselves when it is uncomfortable. They train when motivation is absent. They allocate when temptation is high. They delay when desire is loud. They say no when it would be easier to say yes. This training builds something more valuable than money: self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of all financial power. When you trust yourself, you do not fear income increases. You do not panic around opportunity. You do not sabotage momentum. You do not inflate lifestyle impulsively. You do not collapse under pressure. You know you can handle what arrives. This is why the wealthy move calmly as income rises. Their internal systems are already built. Discipline creates predictability. Predictability creates stability. Stability creates growth. Income without discipline creates volatility. Volatility creates anxiety. Anxiety destroys clarity. Most people think discipline is restrictive. They are wrong. Discipline is freedom insurance. It protects future options. It preserves flexibility. It reduces stress. It stabilizes identity. It allows expansion without collapse. This is why disciplined people appear calm around money. They are not guessing. They are not hoping. They are not reacting. They are executing a known system. The wealthy also understand something subtle but critical. Discipline is not about controlling money. It is about controlling self-image. If you see yourself as someone who leaks money, you will. If you see yourself as someone who cannot resist spending, you will not. If you see yourself as someone who collapses under pressure, you will. But if you see yourself as someone who commands behavior, money obeys naturally. This identity must be built early. Waiting for income to justify discipline is backwards. Discipline is what makes income survivable, scalable, and sustainable. This is why the wealthy often appear boring early on. They do not celebrate prematurely. They do not rush upgrades. They do not signal success before it is secure. They are not hiding. They are preparing. Preparation is invisible. Collapse is public. The disciplined accept invisibility because they understand its purpose. They are building something that must last. They know that every undisciplined phase leaves residue, habits, expectations, patterns that are difficult to undo later. So they build clean habits, clean systems, clean decisions, clean identity. Then, when income grows, nothing breaks. This is the quiet advantage of the wealthy. They are not lucky. They are ready. Money discipline is not a reaction to success. It is the condition for it. And once discipline is internalized, income becomes optional. Not because you no longer want it, but because you no longer need it to feel secure. This is the turning point. From here forward, money no longer controls identity. Identity controls money, and control is power. Chapter 7. Environmental control. How the wealthy design life so discipline becomes automatic. No one sustains discipline through willpower alone. This is one of the most important truths in behavioral psychology and one of the most ignored. Willpower is unstable. It fluctuates with mood, energy, stress, fatigue, hunger, distraction, and emotion. Relying on it is a recipe for collapse. The wealthy know this. They do not trust themselves to be strong every day. They trust their environment to do the work for them. Discipline becomes effortless when the environment is engineered correctly. Most people live inside environments that constantly sabotage them. Their phones are filled with temptation. Their homes encourage convenience over intention. Their routines invite distraction. Their social circles normalize impulse. Their financial systems are loose, unstructured, and reactive. Then they blame themselves for lacking discipline. The problem is not character, it is design. The wealthy reverse this completely. They design life so that the disciplined choice is the default choice. This begins with reducing friction for good decisions and increasing friction for bad ones. If spending is easy, spending will happen. If temptation is visible, temptation will win. If access is immediate, impulse will dominate. So the wealthy slow everything down. They separate money from emotion by separating money from immediacy. They automate what must be protected. They isolate what must be controlled. They distance themselves from triggers. They structure access intentionally. This is not paranoia, it is precision. They do not leave discipline to chance. They build it into the system. They understand that environment trains behavior faster than intention ever could. This is why the wealthy rarely talk about discipline publicly. They rarely need to fight it internally. Their environment is doing the heavy lifting. They do not constantly ask themselves if they should spend. The option is simply not present. They do not struggle to save. Saving happens automatically. They do not debate whether to invest. Investment is pre-decided. They do not argue with impulse. Impulse has no stage to perform on. This level of control is not rigid. It is freeing. Mental energy is preserved. Decision fatigue disappears. Emotional conflict quiets. The wealthy understand that the human brain seeks the path of least resistance. So they make discipline the path of least resistance. They design routines that reinforce identity. They remove cues that trigger unnecessary spending. They limit exposure to advertising, comparison, and noise. They curate social environments that respect restraint rather than mock it. This is a profound shift. Most people attempt to change behavior while staying in the same environment. The wealthy change the environment and let behavior follow. They also understand that discipline must be visible to the self, not the world. Their systems are quiet, their controls are subtle, their rules are personal. They do not announce restrictions, they do not broadcast discipline, they do not seek praise for control. They build invisible fences around their behavior. These fences are not felt as loss, they are felt as safety. Safety from impulsive decisions, safety from emotional spending, safety from external pressure, safety from identity erosion. This is how discipline becomes automatic. When the environment aligns with identity, effort disappears. This is why wealthy people often appear calm in situations where others feel tempted or stressed. They are not resisting, they are not fighting desire, they are simply operating within a system designed for control. The system absorbs the shock. They understand that life is unpredictable, but environment is controllable. You cannot control emotions, you cannot control impulse, you cannot control stress, but you can control access. Access is everything. If money is always accessible, it will be used. If temptation is always visible, it will be indulged. If spending requires no friction, it will occur. The wealthy insert deliberate friction. They make it inconvenient to sabotage themselves. This is not weakness, this is mastery. They do not rely on strength, they rely on structure. This is why discipline once built rarely collapses, because it is no longer dependent on motivation or mood. It is embedded into life. This chapter marks a powerful transition from internal discipline to external reinforcement, from self-control to system control, from fighting temptation to designing it out of existence. This is how the wealthy protect their power quietly, and this is why their discipline lasts. Chapter 8. Spending as investment. Why the wealthy think in terms of return, even when buying nothing. The wealthy do not separate spending from investing. They collapse the distinction. To them, every financial decision is an investment decision, including the decision to spend nothing at all. This is where their thinking diverges most sharply from the average mind. Most people see spending as consumption. The wealthy see spending as allocation of power. Power can be amplified. Power can be preserved. Power can be wasted. Money is simply stored power waiting to be directed. This is why the wealthy do not ask, "How much does it cost?" They ask, "What does this return now, later, and long after?" Return is not always financial. Sometimes the return is clarity. Sometimes it is time. Sometimes it is leverage. Sometimes it is energy. Sometimes it is freedom. Sometimes it is optionality. And sometimes the highest return comes from not spending at all. The undisciplined mind sees restraint as loss. The disciplined mind sees restraint as compounding. When the wealthy choose not to spend, they are not doing nothing. They are actively preserving leverage. They understand that unused money is not idle. It is patient. Patience is not passive. It is strategic stillness. Stillness allows opportunity to surface. Liquidity creates flexibility. Flexibility creates power. Most people rush to convert money into objects. The wealthy allow money to remain abstract until direction is clear. This abstraction is uncomfortable for many. It feels unresolved. It feels unfinished. It feels like potential that has not yet expressed itself. But the wealthy are comfortable holding potential. They do not need immediate resolution. They do not need immediate pleasure. They do not need immediate confirmation of success. They can wait. Waiting increases return. This is why the wealthy often appear conservative with spending but aggressive with opportunity. They conserve power until it can be deployed decisively. They understand that money spent casually loses its force. Money spent intentionally multiplies it. This perspective reshapes everyday decisions. A purchase is evaluated not by desire but by alignment. Does this strengthen identity or dilute it? Does this create future advantage or short-term comfort? Does this expand options or narrow them? Does this add clarity or add noise? If the answer is unclear, the decision is delayed. Delay protects return. The wealthy also understand something most people never consider. Every dollar spent carries an opportunity cost far larger than its price. Money could have remained liquid. It could have been deployed later at a higher return. It could have provided security. It could have bought time. It could have absorbed shock. When you spend without accounting for opportunity cost, You trade future leverage for present sensation. This trade is rarely worth it. The wealthy feel this intuitively. They do not need spreadsheets to know when a purchase weakens position. Their identity is tuned to leverage. This is why they often say no quickly and yes slowly. They are not indecisive. They are precise. They also treat spending as training. Every disciplined decision strengthens internal authority. Every aligned allocation reinforces identity. Every refusal builds self-command. Money becomes a tool for psychological conditioning. When the wealthy choose not to spend, they feel power, not deprivation. They experience the quiet confidence of restraint. They feel in control of their future, rather than captive to impulse. This sensation becomes addictive in the best way. It replaces the short-lived dopamine of consumption with the deeper satisfaction of sovereignty. Over time, this rewires desire itself. Impulse weakens, cravings soften, emotional spending fades. Not because the wealthy suppress desire, but because their identity no longer feeds on it. They do not need to buy to feel complete. They do not need to consume to feel successful. They do not need novelty to feel alive. Their fulfillment comes from alignment. This is why their spending often looks minimal relative to their capacity. They are not limited by money. They are liberated from needing to prove anything with it. The highest level of money discipline is reached when the act of not spending feels as intentional and satisfying as spending once did. At this stage, money becomes quiet. It stops demanding attention. It stops provoking emotion. It becomes neutral, a resource waiting for command. This neutrality is rare. Most people never experience it because they never detach identity from consumption. The wealthy do. And once they do, money obeys. They no longer ask money to make them feel something. They use it to build something. This chapter represents a subtle but powerful shift, from spending as pleasure to spending as strategy, from money as emotion to money as leverage, from consumption to command. And once this shift occurs, discipline is no longer effort. It becomes instinct. Chapter 9. Calm under pressure. Why the wealthy stay steady when money gets tight. Financial pressure reveals the true relationship a person has with money. When resources tighten, most people tense. Their thinking narrows. Their emotions escalate. Their decisions become reactive. Their discipline collapses. The wealthy respond differently, not because they feel less pressure, but because they are trained to remain calm within it. Calm is not personality, it is conditioning. Most people associate financial stress with danger. Their nervous system reacts as if survival is threatened. Fight, flight, freeze. In that state, discipline disappears. The wealthy have trained their nervous system to interpret pressure as information, not emergency. This is one of the most important psychological advantages they possess. They understand that panic destroys clarity. Clarity is required for control. Control determines outcome. So they protect calm as if it were an asset, because it is. Calm allows them to see options. Calm allows them to delay decisions. Calm allows them to choose rather than react. Most people do the opposite. They rush under pressure. They spend to relieve anxiety. They make emotional decisions to escape discomfort. This behavior deepens the problem. The wealthy slow down. They understand that urgency is rarely real. It is emotional, manufactured by fear. They do not deny the seriousness of financial strain. They simply refuse to let it hijack behavior. This refusal is discipline at its highest level. Calm is maintained through identity. The wealthy do not identify as fragile. They do not see themselves as victims of circumstance. They do not interpret difficulty as threat to self-worth. They see pressure as a phase, not a verdict. This internal narrative matters. If you believe pressure defines you, you collapse under it. If you believe pressure is temporary, you remain composed. Composure preserves power. The wealthy also understand that stress is contagious. When you panic, you spread instability to your environment, to your decisions, to your relationships. They refuse to allow money to dominate their emotional state. This emotional independence is what allows them to make rational moves when others panic. They also prepare for pressure before it arrives. They build buffers. They preserve liquidity. They avoid unnecessary commitments. They resist lifestyle inflation. This preparation reduces stress before it begins. But more importantly, it reinforces identity. I am someone who plans. Planning builds confidence. Confidence calms the nervous system. When pressure hits, they do not feel helpless. they feel ready. Most people never experience this because they live at the edge of their capacity. Every dollar is already allocated. Every expense is fixed. Every increase in cost feels catastrophic. The wealthy avoid this intentionally. They keep space. Space in their finances, space in their schedule, space in their thinking. Space allows breath. Breath allows clarity. This is why they can remain calm when markets fluctuate, when income dips, when opportunities stall. They are not immune to stress. They are practiced at managing it. They understand that emotional control is more valuable than financial control. Money can be replaced. Clarity cannot. The moment you lose clarity, you lose command. Calm also allows them to see opportunity inside pressure. When others are shrinking, they are observing. When others are panicking, they are positioning. When others are reacting, they are planning. This is how advantage is created, not through aggression but through composure. Most people believe calm comes from security. The wealthy know calm creates security. This is a reversal of thinking. They do not wait for money to feel safe. They cultivate safety internally. This internal safety stabilizes decisions. They are not driven by fear of loss. They are driven by clarity of direction. This is why their discipline survives stress. Stress attacks discipline first. If discipline collapses, spending increases. If spending increases, pressure deepens. The wealthy break this cycle at the emotional level. They regulate before they react. This regulation is learned, not inherited. It is built through exposure, reflection, and identity reinforcement. Every time they remain calm under pressure, they strengthen the belief, I can handle this. That belief compounds. Eventually, financial stress loses its power. It becomes a challenge, not a threat. And challenges sharpen discipline. This chapter is not about eliminating stress. It is about refusing to let stress make decisions for you. Calm is not weakness. It is leverage. And leverage, when applied correctly, builds wealth quietly and relentlessly. Chapter 10. Discipline as identity. When control becomes power, and power becomes freedom. There is a moment in every disciplined life when control stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like truth. At this point, discipline is no longer something you practice. It is something you are. This is the final transformation. Most people never reach it because they treat discipline as a tool instead of an identity. They use it when it is convenient, abandon it when it is uncomfortable, and wonder why progress never stabilizes. Their discipline lives on the surface, vulnerable to emotion, stress, and distraction. The wealthy move past this stage. They allow discipline to rewrite who they are. When discipline becomes identity, spending no longer requires debate. Restraint no longer feels heavy. Delay no longer feels painful. Saying no no longer creates inner conflict. The mind aligns. Alignment is power. This is when money discipline stops being about money at all. It becomes self-definition. You no longer ask, should I spend this? You already know. You no longer negotiate with impulse. Impulse has no authority. You no longer fear pressure. Pressure is familiar territory. You no longer rely on rules. Identity enforces them. This is the highest form of control, internal governance. The wealthy govern themselves before attempting to govern money. Once this governance is established, money falls into order naturally. This is why the wealthiest individuals are often the least reactive. They are not calculating constantly. They are not restraining themselves forcefully. They are not suppressing desire. They are aligned. Alignment removes friction. Their identity contains clear standards. Those standards shape behavior automatically. Behavior produces predictable outcomes. Predictability creates stability. Stability allows growth. This is how discipline compounds. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Not through restriction, but through clarity. Not through sacrifice, but through self-respect. Self-respect is the hidden engine behind money discipline. When you respect yourself, you do not trade your future for momentary comfort. You do not sabotage progress for emotional relief. You do not leak power through impulsive decisions. You protect what you are building, even when no one else sees it. The wealthy understand that identity is always being reinforced. Every decision teaches the subconscious who is in charge. Every delay strengthens authority. Every aligned choice deepens trust. Eventually, the identity becomes solid. Solid identities do not crack under pressure. They do not bend to comparison. They do not collapse when conditions change. This solidity is freedom. Freedom is not the ability to spend without limits. Freedom is the ability to remain calm, clear, and in control regardless of circumstance. This is the paradox of money discipline. The more control you have, the less control money has over you. When discipline becomes identity, fear loses leverage, guilt loses leverage, impulse loses leverage, pressure loses leverage. You are no longer reacting to money, you are directing it. This direction does not feel aggressive, it feels grounded. Grounded people do not rush, they do not prove, they do not posture, they build quietly, and quiet building lasts. At this stage, discipline becomes invisible to others, but obvious to outcomes. Your life stabilizes, your stress reduces, your clarity sharpens, your options expand. Money stops feeling urgent, it stops feeling emotional, it stops feeling heavy. It becomes a neutral force responding to your identity. This is when power becomes permanent, not because income is high, but because control is deep. The wealthy know that markets will change, income will fluctuate, circumstances will shift, identity endures. An enduring identity can rebuild anything. This is why money discipline is not about deprivation or minimalism or rules. It is about becoming someone who cannot be destabilized by desire. Once you reach this level, wealth is no longer something you chase. It is something that forms around you. Because the world responds to disciplined people differently, opportunities align, trust increases, decisions simplify. Your internal order creates external order. This is the final lesson of money discipline. Control yourself, and money becomes obedient. Lose control of yourself, and money becomes chaotic. Discipline is not the enemy of pleasure, it is the guardian of freedom. And when discipline becomes identity, freedom becomes permanent. Chapter 11. The Silent Advantage. How consistent discipline creates invisible wealth. The most powerful advantages in life are invisible. They do not announce themselves. They do not demand recognition. They do not impress casual observers. They compound quietly. Money discipline, when sustained over time, creates a silent advantage that most people never notice until it is too late to compete with it. This advantage is not income. It is not assets. It is not even savings. It is position. Position is where you stand relative to opportunity, stress, pressure, and choice. The disciplined always occupy a stronger position, even when their numbers appear ordinary. They have margin, they have space, they have flexibility, they have patience. And patience is a form of power few people possess. Most people live at the edge of their capacity. Every dollar has a job. Every expense is fixed. Every surprise feels dangerous. They are constantly reacting. The disciplined live below their maximum pressure threshold. They leave room for error. They allow time to work. They absorb shock without panic. This creates a psychological advantage long before it creates a financial one. The disciplined are not forced into bad decisions. They are not rushed into compromises. They are not pressured into spending. They are not trapped by urgency. Urgency is the enemy of leverage. When you are rushed, you accept worse terms. When you are pressured, you overpay. When you are stressed, you misjudge. When you are desperate, you surrender power. The disciplined avoid desperation not by earning more, but by needing less. This needlessness is misunderstood. It is not poverty thinking, it is independence thinking. When you do not need to spend, you choose better. When you do not need to impress, you negotiate stronger. When you do not need relief, you endure discomfort longer. This endurance becomes a strategic edge. The silent advantage compounds because it changes how the world interacts with you. People sense calm, they sense control, they sense patience. Opportunities flow towards stability. This is why disciplined people often receive better deals, better timing, better access. Without chasing any of it, they are not hunting opportunity, they are positioned for it. This is wealth most people never calculate. Not the wealth you see, but the wealth that allows you to wait. Waiting is power. Waiting allows others to reveal themselves. Waiting allows markets to settle. Waiting allows clarity to replace noise. Waiting allows leverage to increase. The disciplined do not rush because they do not need to. Their money is not screaming for relief. Their identity is not demanding validation. Their nervous system is not hijacked by impulse. They can hold still. Stillness is rare. Stillness is lethal in competition. This chapter exists to show you something most people never realize. By the time wealth becomes visible, the advantage has already existed for years. The disciplined win long before they appear to win. Chapter 12. From discipline to legacy. How control outlives income. Money ends. Identity does not. This is the final truth of money discipline. Income can stop. Markets can crash. Assets can disappear. Fortunes can be lost. But identity, once forged, remains. This is why the truly wealthy think beyond money. They think in terms of continuity. Continuity of behavior. Continuity of standards. Continuity of self-command. They know that money without identity is temporary, but identity without money can rebuild everything. Money discipline, at its highest level, becomes something deeper than control. It becomes inheritance, not just for children, but for the future versions of yourself. Every disciplined decision today teaches tomorrow's self how to behave under pressure. Every refusal strengthens future resolve. Every aligned choice creates a pattern that survives circumstances. This is how power outlives income. The disciplined person does not fear loss, because loss does not erase identity. They do not fear change because identity adapts. They do not fear scarcity because discipline survives it. This is why some people rebuild faster than others, why some fall and rise stronger, why some never truly collapse. They are not relying on money. They are relying on who they have become. This is legacy. Legacy is not wealth passed down. It is discipline passed forward. A disciplined identity teaches restraint automatically. It enforces standards without supervision. It maintains order without fear. It sustains power without excess. This is what makes wealth permanent. Not the amount, not the speed, not the visibility, but the identity behind it. Most people leave behind possessions. The disciplined leave behind systems, habits, standards, behavioral codes. This is why old wealth survives and new money often disappears. One was built on identity, the other on income. This audiobook has never been about spending less. It has been about becoming more stable, more deliberate, more sovereign, more disciplined. Money discipline is the practice. Identity is the result. Power is the outcome. And legacy is the continuation. When discipline becomes identity, wealth stops being fragile. It stops depending on conditions. It stops requiring constant defense. It becomes durable. This is the highest level of financial power available to a human being. Not control over money, but control over self. Chapter 13. The final form. When money discipline becomes unbreakable power, there is a final stage of money discipline that very few people ever reach, not because it is difficult to understand, but because it requires patience most people never develop, and self-honesty most people avoid. This is the stage where discipline no longer feels like effort, structure, or control. It feels like identity. At this level, money no longer creates emotion. It no longer triggers fear. It no longer excites impulse. It no longer provokes insecurity. It becomes quiet. And quiet is power. The person who reaches this stage is no longer managing money. They are governing themselves. Their spending is calm. Their decisions are deliberate. Their lifestyle is intentional. Their future is protected. They do not feel the need to prove success. They do not feel pressure to keep up. They do not feel anxiety when income fluctuates. They do not feel guilt when they say no, because nothing inside them is fighting for control anymore. This is what unbreakable discipline looks like. Not rigid, not harsh, not obsessive, stable. The mind stops negotiating. The nervous system stops reacting. The identity stops splitting between desire and intention. There is alignment. Alignment is when who you are, how you think, how you spend, and how you plan all move in the same direction. At this stage, discipline does not require rules. It does not require reminders. It does not require effort. It is automatic. The person no longer asks, "Should I spend this?" The answer is already known before the question forms. They no longer feel temptation as pressure. Temptation passes through without attachment. They no longer feel scarcity during restraint. They feel strength. This is the transformation most people never complete. They build some habits, learn some rules, control themselves for a while, then relax back into old patterns. The wealthy do not. They stay long enough in discipline for it to rewrite who they are. This takes time, longer than motivation lasts, longer than excitement survives, longer than ego enjoys. But once the transformation completes, it does not reverse, because identity does not need maintenance the way habits do. This is why true financial power is so rare. It requires staying disciplined after discipline stops feeling dramatic, after the excitement fades, after the struggle quiets, after no one is watching. Most people quit here. The wealthy remain. They remain because they no longer feel like they are sacrificing anything. They are not holding back. They are operating correctly. This is when discipline becomes freedom, not the freedom to spend without consequence, but the freedom to live without internal conflict. No guilt, no anxiety, no impulse battles, no emotional negotiations, just clarity. And clarity compounds. Over years, this clarity produces something extraordinary. A life that feels steady, a future that feels secure, a relationship with money that feels neutral and calm, a sense of control that does not depend on income. This is the kind of power that survives loss, change, downturns, and pressure, because it does not live in numbers. It lives in the person. This is why people who master money discipline once can rebuild again and again. They are not lucky, they are not gifted, they are formed by restraint, formed by delay, formed by identity alignment, formed by self-command. This is the final lesson. Money discipline is not about money. It is about becoming someone who cannot be destabilized by desire. Once you become that person, wealth is no longer fragile. It becomes inevitable, not fast, not flashy, not loud, but permanent. And permanence is the highest form of power. Conclusion: the quiet power that never leaves you. If you have listened to this audiobook carefully, you already understand the truth. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Money is not the problem, and money is not the solution. Identity is. Throughout these chapters, you have seen how spending is never just about numbers, how impulse is never random, how guilt is never harmless, how stress is never neutral, and how discipline is never accidental. You have seen that every financial outcome is simply the visible shadow of an invisible inner order. The wealthy do not win because they earn more. They earn more because they operate differently. They do not fight money. They do not chase money. They do not fear money. They command themselves. Money discipline is the ability to remain calm where others panic, to delay where others rush, to say no where others collapse, and to think long-term where others seek relief. It is not a personality trait, it is a formed identity. Once this identity takes shape, it does not disappear when income drops, when markets change, or when circumstances shift. It stays. This is why money discipline is the most reliable form of financial security available to a human being. You can lose money, you can lose opportunity, you can lose position, but you do not lose who you have become, and who you have become determines what you can rebuild. The greatest mistake people make is trying to manage money before managing themselves. They chase systems, tools, tricks, and hacks, never realizing that without internal authority, every system eventually breaks. But discipline built into identity does not break. It matures, it deepens, it stabilizes. You are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. You are no longer controlled by impulse, you are governed by clarity. You are no longer spending to feel something, you are allocating to build something. This is the quiet power behind lasting wealth, not loud, not dramatic, not impressive on the surface, but permanent. If you take nothing else from this audiobook, take this. Your future will never outperform your discipline, and your discipline will never outperform your identity. Build the identity, and the results will follow naturally. This audiobook was written, narrated, and produced by Audiobook Mantra, a channel dedicated to long-form psychological audiobooks on money, power, discipline, identity, influence, and self-mastery. If this work resonated with you, return to it. Discipline is not learned once, it is reinforced through repetition. Subscribe to Audiobook Mantra for future audiobooks exploring the psychology of wealth, leadership, influence, and personal power. And remember, money comes and goes, markets rise and fall, circumstances change, identity endures. Audiobook Mantra, all rights reserved.